Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing. I am your host, Lauren Gray, one of many hosts, I hope, today. I know Stuart Butler said that he will be joining late today. Mr. Robert Cole is always fashionably late. Mr. Tim Peter is always welcome if he makes it. And Mr. Edward StOnge, of course, will be our spirited co-conspirator when it comes to disagreeing with anything we have to say. And Holly Zoba has just been MIA. I have no idea where Miss Holly has been. I know she's frantically busy and totally successful with her training program, which is Sales Influencers. And I think she's just too busy for us now. I think we're the little people. I think that she has moved on to bigger and better things, I think. I'm not too sure. But anyways, this is show 184. We have been doing this, yes, weekly for well into our fourth year. Going to be coming up on an anniversary really soon, actually going to our fifth year. It has been a massive amount of fun. As you notice, we have changed our name. Look at the sign behind. From Hospitality Digital Marketing to This Week in Hospitality Marketing. Because, of course, in effect, digital is a tool, not necessarily a fraction of marketing for hospitality. And as we've discussed many times on the show, there's a diverse way to market your hospitality business. Now, as always, Mr. Robert Cole has curated a wonderful list of topics for us to be able to hit today. I have some tools I'd like to chat about that are very interesting and useful and have been very good in the influencer space, as a matter of fact. We brought them up before, and I'd like to reiterate them again because influencer marketing has turned into being such a strong tool in the usage of marketing. And for that, I would say that let's fun tools, fun things that Mr. Robert Cole has come up with us today. His top story tonight. And I've made fun of this name, and I guess I should stop because Marriott's going all in on this. Marriott Bonvoy launches today. What does that mean? Marriott has decided that, and for those who are member loyalty programs, there have been basically three programs running by name in Marriott since the merger of them in Starwood, the Ritz-Carlton, the Marriott Rewards, and Oh my gosh! It's like a bunch of people show up. Mr. Robert Cole, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well.
I was just talking bad about you. Hey, great, you're here. Oh, I can't hear Tim though. Tim is doing pantomime today.
How about now?
There we go. All good. I was just launching into your top story tonight. I guess I should stop making fun of Bonvoy since Marriott's going all in with the name now and calling their rewards program Bonvoy. So I guess I got to stop picking on it because God knows.
Why? Why do you have to stop picking on it?
Okay, you're right. You know what? Screw it. I'm not going to stop picking on it.
It's a stupid name.
It's a stupid name, God dang it. Come on. Bonvoy. Like, y'all couldn't figure out something a little bit smarter. But I was mentioning the fact with the article that Marriott has aggregated their rewards program by name. I mean, they've been aggregated already since, 8 months ago. And now they put it under a single name now. So there's no longer Marriott Rewards, Star Awards.
Well, and they also integrated all the platforms, too.
Yeah. They killed it. You know, I noticed that they're very fond of just shutting stuff off that has the word Starwood on it. Like, yes, we won the war. Anytime they get to just like,
That's how it happens with most mergers and acquisitions. The acquirer generally erases the past of
so the victor goes
with the exception of Travel Tripper and Pegasus, but
Yes, well.
True, and that's
but
to be
usually
unfolded.
Usually to the victor goes the spoils.
Yes,
I typically do agree with you on that one, Robert.
Yep. But I guess I mean I read. Thank you for posting the article up, Robert. I'm curious about. They still haven't changed their mantra about the rewards programs, the loyalty programs. It's basically a frequency program. It's still a frequency program. There's really not. They didn't change.
It's a rewards program. Yes, it's a rewards program. It is not a loyalty program.
No,
right.
So
yeah, right. It's like, okay, nice to you. I feel kind of like the little puppy that did good and you get the treat for doing it. Like, oh, you stayed at one of our hotels. Here's a little treat. Here's a bottle of water.
Yeah. Well, the best I recommend people go to Marriott at Marriott Bonvoy on Twitter because that's their Twitter account. And again, it's interesting because the last show we discussed how Bonvoy probably came about. I don't have no inside information on this, but it was certainly one of those, hey, we can. This is trademarkable, sort of thing. Nobody's used this word before. Here's bon voyage. It's similar to that. Bon means good in French. Voy means go in Spanish. I'm sure there were lots of rationalizations, and this was the best of a lot of much worse alternatives. In fairness to Marriott.
I'm going with Stuart's idea that it was on a Denver retreat, and Bon came from Bong. And
okay, well, that is another alternate.
There was a Denver retreat, and out came Bon Boy. But
you're probably familiar, and Robert makes a great point. I'm not a fan of the name, but I've participated in exercises like these before, and trademarking things is tough. Finding terms that you actually can trademark is very hard. Finding things where you can get the URL is very hard.
Oh yeah,
right. And making sure it's something that when it's translated doesn't translate into doesn't go, a la the legendary Chevy Nova, right? So picking a name where all of those things is true by definition is a tough thing, and so you tend to end up with stupid names, right?
Yes.
I mean, realistically, the legal framework in which we live and the environment in which we live in terms of what you can trademark and what you can get the URL for and how it's going to work globally. The universe of available syllables is not as broad and useful as you might think it is. So,
and the interesting thing is, though, the naming is all Marriott Bonvoy, right? All the hashtag Marriott is tightly included with all the at least textual messaging. Now the logo itself is just Bonvoy. There's no reference to Marriott.
It is a word mark in the vernacular.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's interesting how they approach, because again, you could argue if Marriott's always in there, you're the largest hotel group. Okay, it's Marriott Rewards. Other people are using Rewards. If you're using it together,
I would go the lean on Tim's side of it. That I think Marriott's an accelerator. Right now, it's an appeasement to the stockholders, the victors, as it were. It's a catalyst for identifying Bonvoy because it is such a out of the blue name. Okay, that there has to be some attached relationship to it. So Marriott's riding that skate until eventually, over time, it will separate itself. It'll still be in some reference to Marriott Bonvoy, but Bonvoy's marketing will probably just end up being Bonvoy. It's the accelerant to the starting program.
Well, and look at SPG, right? I mean, nobody ever referred to it as Starwood Preferred Guest. It was SPG, or it was nothing. Like those were the two universes of people, right? You either were in SPG or you'd never heard of Starwood. Right?
I want to hook on this one thing because we all deal with independent hotels, and I want to remind independent hotels the leverage play that they can have. I mean, we make jokes about this being not a loyalty program, but a rewards program, and that independent hotels have a very unique capability of becoming a loyalty relationship to their guests, that they can fight the big, giant Marriotts of the world by being uniquely loyal to their guests, where they can create that loyalty proposition. And even though we're talking about Bonvoy being such a large thing, and I know that a lot of independent hotels are intimidated because I know from first-hand experience, I have independent hotels going to say, geez, Lauren, I got this corporate, the Marriott is going to open up a shop down the road, and I have really guests that have been with me forever and ever, and they said, like, I love you guys, but I get points going down there, and I want to bring my kids out to a holiday, so I want to build points. I'm going to stay with them. You have to answer those hard answers. You have to come up with solutions that solve that problem for that hotel, that they're not going to walk out their door and go down in their door because they're on a Bonvoy program now.
Right.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Robert. Go ahead.
Oh no, the messaging though is still a little odd for Marriott that I find, because when you go to their homepage, there's Marriott Bonvoy, new name, fresh look, same great loyalty program. So it's kind of like, oh, you just put lipstick on the pig, sort of thing, right? Which is a little odd. But then you look at the video that runs like on Twitter, and it says, discover a new day, a new name, a fresh perspective, extraordinary brands, endless experiences, rewards reimagined. That is complete conflict with their other messaging. So I don't know. I understand why they do it. This feels to me like even within Marriott, this is kind of a compromise, and they're trying to find their way to, or unless they're consciously saying people on Twitter, let's reassure them that nothing's changed. Other people who are at Marriott.com, you love us, let's do something different. I don't know.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I have my own perspective on this. I don't think I'm alone on this. Robert, you and I have had this conversation face to face at least one time that I recall. Lauren, we've probably talked about it, but we're usually drinking then, so I don't always remember. But
I like to talk business with Tim when I'm sober, personally. But that's okay.
I feel much more smarter when I drink. So,
well, I will tell you, the drunker you get, the smarter I sound. So that's usually, I generally recommend people get a couple of get a little liquid.
That's right.
Get a little liquid sustenance before we go too far. Yeah. Which I really advise anyone watching the show right now. In fact, if you'd like, at 11:30 on a Friday morning, by all means, no.
We sound really good if you already been drinking.
Exactly,
yes, you're absolutely
right. So, when you look at what a brand value proposition is today to a guest, right? And, we talk about this a lot in terms of loyalty and everything, with no disrespect to the many fine people working at many large brands doing a really good job to appeal to guests. I want to be really clear about this. Loyalty, as we talk about it in the travel space as a whole, does not exist, right? Mm-hmm. If you've ever met somebody who has a Harley Davidson tattoo, or they have a Nike tattoo, they got the swoosh tattooed on them, or they have the Apple logo tattooed on them, right? Yes. Somebody who's going to mark their body permanently with your corporate identity, that's loyalty. And
so Tim's program would have included body tattoos. I think
my point being,
the top tier guys get the tattoo.
Right, but my point being, right? We don't have that kind of loyalty in the travel industry generally. I mean, I fly United every time I fly. I want my damn points. I'm not getting a tattoo ever. If they were to hold me down and try to force it on me, I would fight kicking and screaming the whole way, right? We just don't have that kind of loyalty. But now there are properties that engender that kind of loyalty where, every time I go to this town, I always stay at, right? Like people will tell you that. But that's not to a brand, that's to the experience they had, or the way they were taken care of at this one particular property. But so what the brands are offering in many cases is the loyalty program. If I'm the rewards program, if I'm the guest, right? And if you look at, when you go to Marriott.com, Bonvoy is all over the place. It clearly is getting, I would say equal billing with Marriott itself.
I think so. Yeah.
So they're big. Really emphasizing we're Marriott Bonvoy. Like the rewards program is the thing you're here for.
Yep.
And I think that that's really telling about the future of these brands, the future of the chains over the long haul is, how many brands does Marriott have?
30.
Right. Right. Where are they on the homepage? Right. Way down the bottom.
They're down at the bottom and in a box that says Marriott Bonvoy, right? Which used to say Marriott International sort of thing, right? That was So I think
Marriott Bonvoy is the glue that holds all these things together, and is basically saying these individual brands kind of don't matter. The Bonvoy brand is the thing that actually matters, because that's how you get your points.
And that, I think, is taking a page out of the book from SPG, right?
Yeah,
because Starwood was never a brand of particular hotels, right? It was always just the amalgamation that was the umbrella.
By the way, Alan on Facebook says, Alan says that he's drinking right now, so we're sounding smart. And,
that's good.
Hey, Mr. Ed. And he also says, when did you ever see anybody wear a Marriott t-shirt unless it's a golf polo shirt?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
I want my Bonvoy t-shirt.
That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that Bonvoy, we're talking about loyalty versus, paying people to stay in your properties.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fun conversation.
And the distinction between those, and it is a very clear distinction.
Yes.
And
so did we find anything that was loyalty?
No, we did
not so much in the travel industry.
Hotels have the opportunity to create loyalty, but we did that as a constant mantra that we always point out, that there is opportunity in every market, especially for independents, to drive loyalty. Not that brand hotels can't, but they're constricted by what their brand offers, and then they have to work around that. So,
Yeah. Well, but I suggest going to
Which
the
is
Marriott
ironic
Bonvoy
because
account.
hospitality drives loyalty.
Yes,
Well,
exactly.
I'm sorry. Taking care of the guest, what?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Oh, too
Yeah,
true.
loyalty is the outcome, not
Right,
necessarily the
Correct.
input. But please go to the Twitter account, look at their announcement, and the snark of Twitter was just really quite
Oh yeah,
entertaining.
yeah. They kind of picked
Equating
a
the
little-
name to everything from candies, cats, and cruise lines, and that's just the C's. So
Yeah.
Right.
But to your point, Robert, and what they're saying is very polar, because it's like trying to describe wine: simple but fruity, complex but earthy. It's like pick one.
Yeah.
You can't be everything. You can't be.
I'm
the same
sure.
as
I'm
completely
sure
new.
KPMG or whatever consulting firm they hired got paid dearly to make sure there was complexity to the description of Bonvoy.
Oh yes. How many words can you put in one sentence that do not go together?
So,
Right.
well, and here's one kind of interesting, on a serious note with this, everyone kind of knew that when this merger occurred, that the Starwood program, which was very, very generous to the customers in terms of the payout, that was going to change, right? Because you certainly weren't going to take all the Marriott properties and destroy Marriott's margins on it by giving them everything that Starwood had.
Right.
So all the loyal Starwood
why
guys
not?
already have an axe to grind, right? I mean, you've taken away my cherished, and the SPG members, I believe, were probably, if you looked at net promoter scores or whatever measure you wanted to look at, were probably more beholden to that program than the Marriott, which is why Starwood didn't get broken up. And at least some of the analysts I've spoken with calculated that about 40 to 60% actually of the valuation of Starwood was SPG as opposed to the individual brand assets, right? So they have all of that, but now what they've done is for some of their top tier members, there's this tier number 8, which isn't out yet. Right, so they kind of have this program, and there's a link from this 1 Mile at a Time blog that tracks loyalty programs. So what they've done is last August they said, okay, here's 1 to 7, and here's how the points work, and that was a dampening of the benefits from Starwood right there. But now they have an off-peak. So instead of a Category 1 being 7,500 points, you can go off-peak for 5,000 points, right? So if they're down, you can maybe stay for less. And if it's peak, it's 10,000, right? So they've now kind of put this on a scale. And there's this new Category 8 where it used to be 60. This is the one that's really getting the high end guys. It used to be 60,000 miles or points for a room. It's now 85,000 as a standard. And if it's peak, it's 100,000. Right. So that's a 66% premium over what you used to have to pay in perhaps a peak period to stay. So
you're not Bonvoy, you're Bonvoyeur.
Yeah.
Oh wait.
I'm sorry. Did anybody ever get the other? Did anybody else see that and think of Spinal Tap? Our speakers are louder because we go to 11.
Yeah. Well, and that does kind of makes sense, because they're trying to figure out this whole thing with, again, you have these hotels that are basically dumping their rates to get to 95%, so they can get paid for the rooms by the brand. That doesn't really help the brand. It doesn't really help the hotel. Yeah, everybody kind of loses, right?
But Robert, I want to ask you a question specifically, because you're probably the person on this show best equipped to answer this. If anybody here is going to know this, I think it's going to be you. And that's
I would say Ed.
I know nothing.
This goes.
No. We all know stuff. We're all smart. We're all good at certain stuff. This question really speaks to the thing that you pay a lot of attention.
Good for me.
Yeah,
he found one that was good for me. I'm so excited.
So,
after 183 shows.
So you just said that the folks who valued Starwood, they said 60+% of the valuation in Starwood was in the loyalty program.
Well, 40 to 60, depending on
40 to 60%.
But that's a lot. That is a lot.
But this is the crux of my question. What chain in the industry would that rough range not be true for?
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, realistically, right? Hilton Honors probably comprises a plurality of the value of Hilton, right?
Yes and I don't think it would be as high, but yeah.
Okay, plurality of the value, right? IHG, probably plurality of the value. Member benefits or whatever the heck it's called. Wyndham Rewards.
That's an
probably
interesting. That is
value.
a very interesting exercise, I think, to take the market cap of the company and then try to figure out how that breaks out. That's like a Trefis analysis. Yeah. No, that is an interesting analysis. I think SPG had the best reputation and kind of the deepest, richest. So I would put them as higher than the others. The only thing I was going to say is,
to a guest, what does the guest care about when they talk about the brand? They care about the loyalty program. They care about the points that they get. And I would expect for most of the major chains, you get into the smaller guys, you get into Hyatt. I think this is probably true. Kimpton pre-getting bought. I think this is probably true, right? Yeah. Where there's more valuation, there's a lot more valuation in the other stuff. But I mean, realistically, somebody just said in chat, I can't see his name because Alan just said casinos may play at the high loyalty-based valuations. Yeah, I would expect Caesars. That's probably true. I would expect that. And
that's not the points. That's because you get to eat and you get to stay and eat free and get a lot to go to shows and do all sorts of things as long as you continue to wager. So,
but I think in 10 years, which 10 years is always my number for not next year, probably not the year after that. But within our career lifetime,
Do you think you have 10 years left?
I have 9.5. So I'm just gonna make it in under the wire.
Just after Tim's predictions, just before Tim's predictions.
We're taking over-unders on here, folks. Okay.
No, but I think in 5 to 10 years there will be a major chain of some kind that is primarily nothing but the loyalty program. Like that's the value offering, right? And nothing but. Because I think that's where we're going to, at least in the eyes of the guests. I think the chains, to their detriment and to their credit, they've made a choice, have said this is where we live now, right? And that's where they're, that's sort of the logical
reward
conclusion.
Programs, yes.
Reward programs, yes.
Bringing up an old topic, but it's still new and fresh because it's still happening. Think about Oyo for a moment, with their hands on so many little micro aspects of engagement, where they have their own Uber versions, they have their own food delivery versions, they have their own hotel versions, even financing versions of things. And you figure they have their own tech stack. They built everything that they run. They are owned to no one when it comes to having to rely upon services outside of themselves. And if they
SoftBank,
and other than the bank that gave them money, but but the idea of it is that if they could create an Amazon-esque type of lead, know what you need, keep putting things in front of you mentality, and build a currency like you're talking about, Tim, that's about the loyalty relationship. The more you do, the more you get. Kind of thing, you could create an ecosystem like that, and of course, you're only going to stay in that ecosystem because of the value proposition. It's like I'm traveling, I'm going to be on my Oyo travel. I'm going to go and find everything I need.
Well, I will admit, I have a particular point of view on this, and you said a very, very important word right there, Lauren, which is currency. You guys probably know this. I've probably talked about it on the show before. I wrote a white paper. I was hired by an industry organization to write a white paper on blockchain and its future for the industry and things along those lines.
And how it's going to disrupt OTAs.
And how it's going to disrupt OTAs. Well, it's not. It's not. However, when we think about it as a currency system, as a store of value, when we talk about, using it to reduce friction for earn and burn, right? And I'm going to be clear, we're talking blockchain, not Bitcoin. It's entirely possible that becomes, and I'm not saying it will be blockchain. It could be some other type of, cryptocurrency, some other type of technology. But this idea that the loyalty program is nothing more than a currency, realistically, when we talk about a lot of these companies, that could absolutely, I don't want to say could be, it's, we're talking about systems of trust, of enabling who do we know. We're talking about systems of enabling payment of some kind, right? A currency store. We're talking about, earn and burn, right? We're talking about having some sort of contracting mechanism to know that those things are true. I think that's really the more interesting place when you talk about some of these technologies that are getting a lot of buzz, and a place where Bonvoy, maybe that's where they're heading, that they're saying, we're going to talk about earn and burn through lots of different things, and it's not just going to be hotels. It's going to be anything we can put our stamp on, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I happen to be an advisor for a company, an organization. This section of the program sponsored by no, no, but it's called Currency Alliance. It's out of Barcelona. They've been around a couple of years, and actually, Chuck Arrett, who's the CEO, just gave a great presentation that got great reviews, and we're hoping to get the video of it, but just talking about the future of loyalty and these currencies, because what they have done is, if you work with, there's a large publicly traded group that's based in Canada that kind of controls most of the points currencies here, but it costs at least 6 figures to go integrate with them, right? Because they only have 50 or 60 clients, right? They're the elephant killers, right? So they're large scalable legacy business, which is fine and good. Think GDS type approach to it, and that's great, but they take a 15% VIG out of the value of every transaction, which is a lot, right? So you're kind of like a GDS and an OTA, just playing kind of middleman on transactions that, aren't really, involving much else. And these guys, they started off looking at blockchain, right? Ed will savor this because they were using Ethereum. Everything was good, and they could get the cost down to no upfront costs, no annual minimums or anything like that, and 2% of the value as opposed to 15, right? We're talking radical, value creation in that. Blockchain or Ethereum didn't work because it was too expensive for microtransactions, right? Which is kind of the antithesis of what's supposed to happen with blockchain. So they're using conventional transactions. They're doing a bunch of stuff with the blockchain groups because they figured that's where it winds up, right? But right now, between the mining and all of the stuff and the speculation fueling the valuations of these crypto transactions, that's not a viable solution. And so on I may or may not, I've been invited to speak at actually moderate a panel at the Blockchain and Travel Summit, which is JetBlue Ventures is doing in New York in March. And so we'll see. I'm trying to figure out my schedule because I'm supposed to be going to Italy. It's conflicts with that. So.
Wait a minute, but
anyway, but it's interesting. We're trying to put together a hospitality panel. There's a ton of stuff going on in air, but for hospitality and destinations, not so much.
Right? It is live from Myrtle Beach, the one, the only, the incomparable Stuart Butler.
At first, I thought you were going to say the incompetent, and I was like, "Wow."
That's right.
I would never do that cold words.
I would mean things with a positive tone, and people will miss it.
That's right. Late to the show because he was escorted by his parole officers. So Stuart, great to have you here. So.
You can only walk so fast.
That's right. Yep, you can't see his hands or his feet. So that's okay.
Are those bars on the window or just a frame?
He's so happy he joined. Welcome.
I mean, I don't know if it's this beating I'm taking or tuning in and hearing you still talking about blockchain. I'm not sure which one.
Right?
Well, it started. It started
a panel for blockchain.
We were really talking about loyalty and just. And
I
really,
figured it was the Bonvoy.
It was the Bonvoy discussion. And do hotel chains at some point in the future? Does at least some hotel chain at some point in the future become really nothing more than a loyalty program? That's really what led us down this direction. I'm certainly very much in the, yes, I'm saying that will be true, at least for all practical purposes, right? I think when we talk about, there will obviously be, stuff under the hood, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that the bulk of their valuation will be tied up in what their loyalty program does. Yeah, and I think that's real likely in the not
much like the airlines, right?
Correct.
How much demand have you aggregated off of that?
Right.
But the airlines, at least, they've basically divvied up origins and destinations. Right. Which, was actually interesting. Yeah.
But there are airlines where the majority, if not all, of their profit comes from loyalty. It doesn't come from flying at all.
Bob Crandall, way back in the day, when I was at Sabre, which was owned by American at that time, used to joke if he could get rid of the airline and just keep the Advantage program, he would have a very, very profitable organization.
Right.
Yeah, and it did. I mean, at that time, there's probably a statute of limitation. In 1999, I had a guy who worked for me who went to the airline because he took over just the City Advantage card. That was generating $1 billion back then, right? I mean, just unbelievable because, again, all of those points are getting purchased from the airline, right? The airline isn't just there philanthropically letting American Express and the Visa, Chase and Citi and all these guys go. And you look at the valuation that those guys put on it to pay for those points to get access to those, those travelers and that demographic who are kind of locked in. Yeah, it's a compelling business model.
I do have one question. You put in this sketchy article from Hotel News Now from some shady little organization. I don't know who. Distribution trends you care about most in 2019?
Oh, yeah. No, that's part of their new program of really it's a mental health thing where they take someone who's struggling and they give them an avenue and it helps people kind of understand what's going on.
What's his name? Peter something? I forget that guy's name.
Peters. I think it's Peters. Peters. Yeah, Peters associated something.
Ed left on that one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Ed is shoring up the Tim Peter fan club. He's got to go do something.
Peters.
That's right. You went to read the article. No, Tim, I almost called you Peter. Tim, I thought it was an excellent article.
It was an excellent article. Since we have the author, please elaborate on your wonderful article.
Google's going to kick everyone's ass.
He doesn't remember. He goes, wait, which one was that?
So the original title of the article and the title of a subsequent blog post, subsequent podcast episode rather, was Google is the beast that the 800-pound gorillas in your industry are afraid of, right? Realistically, they're not the 800-pound gorilla. They're the thing that scares the crap out of the 800-pound gorillas.
And they're admitting this, too.
And they are admitting this.
The CEO came out this past couple of weeks and said that exact thing. That's who he's afraid of. That's his competition.
And he's right. He's right. So I've talked about this many, many, many times on the show. I will not belabor the point. There's a great book called Information Rules by Hal Varian and Carl Shapiro, written in the 90s. Carl Shapiro was the chair of Stanford's economics department. Hal Varian left Stanford, where he was a professor when he wrote the book, and is now the chief economist for, say it with me, Google. And they basically laid out that, one of the things that happens when you sell information products, right, of any kind, is that there's only two ways to win. You either become the place where everybody goes, or you have to be the niche, which is where the place where everybody goes points to. There's no middle class. There is no way to win. So, Expedia, Booking.com, TripAdvisor, et cetera, are in an existential fight for their Marriott, right, are in existential fights for their lives to be the place where people start their journey. And right now, Google's winning. Right? I mean, plain and simple. Will they always win? I have no idea. But they sure are. They're sure well positioned to win, and they're sure making all the right moves to win. And at some point, it's entirely likely that guests, when they open up their phone or they open up their laptop and they're saying, okay, I'm thinking about taking a trip. We already know quite a few already start at Google, a huge chunk. But some of them aren't going to open the Expedia app. They're not going to open the TripAdvisor app. They're not going to open the Booking.com app. They're going to go to Google, and that's where they're going to go. Or they're going to go to Facebook, or they're going to go to Instagram, or they're going to go to one. And that's what we're moving towards, right? So I don't think there's going to be one winner. I think there are going to be, three winners or something like that, as there often are in industries. Right. But but it's not going to be, Booking and Expedia. And Alan Young asked, what about Amazon? Amazon's certainly a possibility. There's certainly a very real possibility. They don't seem to have come out of the blocks strong when we talk about travel at all. They don't seem to have done well in that space.
Well, they've come out of the blocks 5 times.
Right, they've tried it a couple of times and fallen on their face pretty much every time. So
but they have a big leg up in the next round, though, right?
Because of voice.
Because of voice, and because of how we interact with information, how we access information is fundamentally shifting to a voice-first world. Mm-hmm. Amazon has the monopoly there, right? So there's a good opportunity.
Last quarter, Google Homes. Quarter, Google Homes outsold Amazon Echoes.
Right.
Oh, really? I didn't see that data. That's interesting.
And
in terms of total installed devices,
total installed tech, they absolutely crush. But
right.
And they have a breadth of tech, and another article that you pointed out, I'm foreshadowing here, but that's an even scarier proposition as they acquire router companies, right? So they're providing mesh Wi-Fi. So they're going to own the home.
And on Google,
certainly the game they're trying to play.
People have to remember on Google with voice, being an Android, I think I'm still the only Android guy on this show, maybe. But Google Assistant is on your phone. It's everywhere. You use voice for, or at least I use voice for a massive number of requests. And I ask, what time do restaurants close? How long is it going to take to drive someplace? All those sorts of things vary. That whole conversational commerce thing. And boy, talk about, with so many people talking on the phone, the whole natural language processing, figuring this stuff out. Google has more data than anybody.
For sure.
Right? And all
so let's assume Amazon doesn't become a major player. That means even worse for these guys, for the Expedias and the Booking.coms and TripAdvisor, because they're not in that space. They're going to get completely cut out of the funnel. And when you think about it too, from an economy standpoint right now, there are patterns where someone goes to Google, right? Google's getting their piece by someone clicking on an ad to TripAdvisor. TripAdvisor now gets their piece by selling a Trip Connect ad to Expedia. So TripAdvisor got their piece. Now it goes that consumers ended up on Expedia. Expedia sells the booking, and they're getting their piece through the commission. So you got 3 people here that have taken a piece out of the pie before the hotel gets their revenue.
Right.
That's not a healthy situation for us as an industry to be in. So really, I mean, there's an advantage in some ways to this trend, to where if you can have, as a hotel, a relationship directly with Google, and they're owning the entire process, at some point it might get to where their percentage is 30 or 40% of the revenue, but it's going to take a while. So you could save money, but now you're putting all your eggs in one basket. And I think that was one of the things Tim said in his article, which is you've got to have a strategy which is diverse right now. You've got to have hooks in the water in as many places as you can, because otherwise, if Google does decide to do something squirrely and your whole strategy is on Google right now, and they change the algorithm or flip the script somehow, you're screwed. You dead in the water.
And that's just it. I mean, I'm so sorry, Lauren. I feel really strongly that, I want Amazon to succeed at this. I want Apple to succeed at this. I want, Bookspedia to succeed at this, right? Because, well, come on, that's what they're gonna be called when they merge, right?
I think at some point,
it's like Google's on back in the day.
But we want. So the term that doesn't get thrown around a lot, I'm so sorry for throwing up like weird terms like this, but the term that doesn't get thrown out enough is, this is not monopoly, it's monopsony. Right? It's monopoly is when you as a consumer only have one place to buy, realistically. Monopsony is when you as a seller only have one place to sell. And we are far closer to a monopsony as travel suppliers than we are to a monopoly.
Yes.
And that's really bad. We want there to be, when you talk about Booking and Expedia, that duopoly, it's really a duopsony, and that's not good for us. So it's good that Google is keeping Expedia, that Google has Expedia scared. It's good that they have Booking.com scared. It would also be good if Amazon had them scared. It would also be good if Apple had Amazon scared. It would also be good if Alibaba had the whole frickin' lot of them scared, which, if you look at China, is pretty much a monopoly there. So, I mean, we want this diverse options, and, you know, as hotel marketers, as hotel strategists, et cetera, we want to make sure we're not putting our eggs in one basket, but making sure we got a strategy for each of them. You know,
I was thinking about, as you guys are talking about, I feel in the same way that Snapchat is an example of a death of a breed of what we often think is the small guy being able to win. The I have a great idea, and even though there's Googles and Amazons in the world, good ideas, well curated and growth wise, you can go over and build a big business. I mean, Amazon, Google, McDonald's, Burger King, they all started somewhere at some small place in one spot. You know, everything had a nexus. But nowadays, looking at like Snapchat, you can be very good and have critical mass, and you can have growth and get totally shredded by being stolen from. Anything that is of individual value to that, even from a trademark point of view, it's immaterial. You can't protect everything unique about yourself, but you duplicate it. And so what happens is, I think that our belief in our economies of capitalism that, you know, oh, I have a great idea and I'm a little guy in a small little office somewhere and I can grow into an Amazon. Those opportunities are going to be really hard to cultivate because there's always a price. Somebody can walk into your door from an Amazon or Google or something and say, hey, you got a cool idea here. Here's 10 times what you ever thought it was worth, and it's now ours. Right. And then poof, all gone. And so it never gets past that nascent stage.
Right, and that's what Tim talks about on his podcast a lot. I'm pretending like Tim's not here, but Tim talks about how you know, either you're the 800-pound gorilla, or you've got to have a niche. You know, you've got to provide some unique value that, and have a finite audience that's passionate, or you've got to go broad and dominate like an Amazon or a Google does.
Well, and you know, the reality is, when you talk about digital, what seems to be true is the big do get bigger by definition. You know, not to get into regulatory environments or things along those lines. Our current regulatory environment in this country is not well equipped to handle a Google or to handle an Expedia or folks like that.
The Federal Trade Commission has 5 commissioners now.
No. But wait,
we also have congressmen that say, if I walk with my phone over to the Democrat, do you know
it's not even that. It's not even that. It's not even that. I want to be really clear. This is not meant to be political in any way, shape, or form. Not because I'm unafraid to talk about politics, you know, but because this is more a question of philosophy. If you look at the regulatory framework in this country, when we talk about antitrust, it is predicated, it is built upon, is it creating higher prices for consumers? That is the base assumption. And if it's not creating higher prices for consumers, then it's not anti-competitive.
Consumer harm.
That's the world that the U.S. regulatory environment lives in. You know, the EU has a different regulatory scheme, which is, if it hurts competition, ultimately it will hurt the consumers. But in the U.S., if it does not raise prices, if there's no consumer harm, then it's not anti-competitive. And, you know, when you look at Google, the consumer doesn't pay anything. When you look at Facebook, the consumer doesn't pay anything, right? So, you know, Facebook can buy Instagram. Ben Thompson and I'm going to blank on the other guy's name, the Stratechery podcast, which is a spectacular podcast.
Great podcast.
You know, they talk about this a lot, in that, you know, Facebook in all likelihood should never, in a rational regulatory environment, probably should never have been allowed to buy Instagram. Right. And probably should never have been allowed to buy WhatsApp. But because the whole basis by which we structure our regulatory environment for antitrust is based on, if prices don't go up, then, you know, if prices don't go up, the consumer wasn't harmed. And that whole framework doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but and there's nothing overlooking the societal cost of having
correct.
Essentially
it's monetary
publishing media platforms, without any sort of, you know, reins which control, you know, traditional publishers and media outlets which have some sort of journalistic, you know, oversight going, wait a second, you can't do that or say that because you are liable. That's not it. They're platforms, right? It's not us saying this. We're just enabling free speech. And yeah, there's some friction in how that gets worked out.
Alan's got a great question here. Yeah. Go ahead, Lauren.
last question. He says, last question before we go. You mentioned Alibaba having invested $427 million into StOnge and their
Shiji, yeah.
Shiji.
Sorry.
Yeah.
They'd be trying to capture the market, the technology, and then start a distribution channel.
They already have a distribution channel.
Right.
I mean, they have distribution channels in Asia. They don't have, and primarily China. They don't have distribution channels in the States.
But they're making moves here. They just bought Ice Portal, right? So
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
The simple answer is yes, Alan.
Yeah.
The complicated answer will be the rest of the show.
But look at the other things that they've bought, which I think we're segueing onto another topic.
Yeah, let's move over to the articles. Yeah, let's move over to
that. But for Shiji, what else have they acquired? They acquired Stay in Touch. They acquired Review Pro.
Yeah.
They acquired Hetris. And I'm leaving another one out. There's another one in there. But they have acquired some really good assets to bolt into this. And again, these guys are predominantly former Micros Fidelio folks,
Snapshot.
right? Who are running
Thank you, Alan.
Snapshot. That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
And so with all of those, yes, they're cobbling together review content, right? They're cobbling together some of Snapshot's, analytics. They're taking the content side for images on Iceberg, and you start putting all this together, plus a very large installed base of hotels on a platform, including other PMSs with Stay in Touch and Hetris, things like that. Yes, they've got a plan and they are executing.
I think what the Ice Portal acquisition does, which I don't know if the others really did, is it gets them immediately penetration in all the major brands, because a lot of the big brands use Ice Portal for their content distribution.
And now with BFM being bankrupt, it's going to be one of the go-to sources. I mean, Henry was sweet. He called me up before he made the announcement to tell him that he had made this, did this, and he.
Lauren, you're supposed to reveal that on the show. Come on, it's news. You got to. Breaking news.
This was beginning of the week stuff, but he went over and he called it. It's like, and he said, I mean, it was a ludicrous number. He had this ludicrous number.
Which, by the way, good for Henry. Can we just say Henry is one of the genuinely good guys in this industry?
He's a nice guy for sure.
He rang the bell. He did the deed.
Hang on. Henry Woodman, a good guy, a guy who's been living in Florida, keeping poor Portal the penguin in a tropical environment for years? No.
He has slayed the dragon so many times. He has bound a battle with so many. I mean, VFM and before that.
Portal. He told me Portal is now enjoying himself on a frigid beach, enjoying like sushi grade tuna. So Portal's doing fine, I think.
Portal's the real winner in this acquisition.
Right.
Henry, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Could not happen to a nicer guy.
Right, absolutely.
And by the way, if Shiji wants to back up the truck for Tim Peter and Associates, by the way, my number is 201.
and Tim will happily off all of the associates if they want that. That's not a problem.
They should buy this show. That's what they should do. They should give us all $1 million.
Yes, that's what they should do. They would get media distribution from buying the show. But no, Henry couldn't have a nice year. But it was and he was talking about the progress.
Alan's leaving. Oh no. Oh.
Bye, Alan.
Oh, Al, thank you.
Calibri Labs. That's right.
Labs,
Alan put.
right?
Yeah, that's right. Because Shiji put money into Calibri too. You're right.
Yeah.
Oh
So more data play.
But
thanks, Alan.
Because as we were joking,
we need to have Alan on the show. At least his glasses on the show. So.
As we pointed out at the beginning of this, to the victor goes the spoils. I mean, so too in the capitalistic world. If you're dominating the information space, you write the history. You're the one that writes the tale because
I do want to come at this from the other side, though, because if you think about what the OTAs have been doing, with Expedia-powered technology, right, and their investments in Alice and things like that. I know Kayak has an investment in a lightweight property management system that's actually been deployed in about 500 properties across Europe.
Which one's that?
I'm trying to find the notes. That's I know that it exists. Fine. I can't think of the name of it right now. But the point being, let's be fair. I'm not taking anything away from Expedia. I'm not taking anything away from Booking.com. they recognize that their organic growth by signing up new hotels is basically over, right? Is essentially coming to an end. I mean, if there is a hotel that is not on these platforms today, well, there aren't many of them, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Unless
And
it's a
so-
new build, right?
Unless it's a brand new build, right? Right. So the kinds of
Yeah.
growth that they've historically benefited from, they're not going to get that way. So they have to get deeper into the value chain in other places. So, Shiji's showing one path, which is buy the technology and then use that to get into the value chain that way. Expedia and Booking have obviously been in one part of the value chain and are looking how they can extend that a different way, which could be a good way to win against Google because maybe they're the connectivity partner for everybody at some point. Maybe, right? I don't know the right answer to that. I think that's going to take time to shake out.
Do you think, I'm going to ask a question, sincerely a question. Do you think that there's still room in the world for a hotel group yet to be created, but to create of themselves and to keep the Southwest airline strategy? We're only going to be found on our own platform. We're only going to be bookable in our own environment.
Oh,
No
sure.
question.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, without question.
You just have to have a very unique niche on that, and Southwest stuck by their knitting, right? I mean, they didn't go down the path of pre-assigned seating or boarding passes. They used one type of equipment. They figured out, here's how we get all of our costs under control very efficiently, and they even survived the Wright Amendment, which was designed to absolutely neuter them. With DFW Airport, right? I mean, they stuck to what they knew.
I would argue Airbnb is that today already.
I would say so. Yep.
Right. So
Absolutely.
I mean, but I would think there's room for others to do a similar thing, for sure. I also have a theory. This is something I've been thinking about for a while, and I've never really said this out loud in a public forum. So you guys are hearing it here first. And
are we on a 3-second delay, Lauren?
No.
Hit the mute button quick.
Feel free to shoot this full of holes, because this is the first time I've ever put this in front of a panel of my peers, and I would love to get some thoughts about this. But I have this theory that the guest acquisition, that there's always going to be a cost of distribution, and that the cost of distribution is going to fall into a certain narrow range of possible costs, because we know it's going to cost more than zero, right? Sales and marketing and things along those lines always have some cost associated with them. We know that not OTAs, travel agents have always charged 10%, always get paid 10%. Now, we've seen downward pressures on that, so maybe 8 becomes the new reality at some point, or the like. But anything that's too expensive, you're just going to turn it over to travel agents. You're just going to turn, you know what I mean? You've always got that as an effective floor, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when we saw people come in who got real expensive, like Expedia, when they were 22% and stuff like that, it created this big universe for new competitors to enter the marketplace, Booking.com, etc.
Yeah,
exactly. Right? Your margin is my opportunity. And so the natural cost of distribution is always going to be something 10 and 20%, always, because it gets much lower than that. You can't really do business, and at that point, it's just an OTA. It's just a travel agent commission.
Well, yeah,
you get too much. You get more.
You can do business, but it's hard to scale, right? It's hard to really
scale.
Get big. It's hard to fill your valley periods and things like that.
Right.
Yeah,
right. And you get much above, you get too close to 10 or above 20%, and you're just opening up the doors for new entrants to come in and compete with you. And so I think that's sort of, when we are thinking about our distribution strategies, thinking about our marketing strategies, the reality is you want to try to hold those numbers as close to that floor as you possibly can. But that floor is a natural floor, a natural floor, and there is a natural ceiling. And when you do your job well, what you're doing is you're driving those costs as close to the floor as you possibly can. But you're never going to go below that floor in real, actual practice at scale, And I think that's so. To your question, Lauren, if you want to come into the marketplace as a newbie, you can probably, by the way, you were saying folks who could do that. Oh God, I've completely blanked on their names, and I love them. Citizen M did that for quite a while.
That's
right?
what I thought when I thought about that. It's like, that's what's the most recent example in my head of we're going to do it our way, and we're going to be unique in our own way, and you can only book with us on our own, with us.
But at a certain point, if you want to scale, you've got to open some additional channel partners, right?
And they're out on everybody now, right?
Yeah,
which goes back,
and that's going to raise your cost. But again, you're just going to say, how do we ride as close to the floor as we possibly can?
Yeah. Well, look at Disney. Look at Disney properties and things like that, though.
Yeah.
You kind of go, well, could they zero out commission? No, they have not done that. They're still providing commission opportunity. Hey, how do you do this? Sell this new product. Now, it'll be interesting with the Star Wars hotel. Could they go out and say, we don't need
they
any
came out
of
and
your
said, we're spending $0 marketing in Star Wars.
Zero
Absolutely.
They literally said, our marketing strategy is opening the door.
But they will still pay commission to travel agents, I believe, on that property.
You would imagine,
what's the budget for episode 9? Come on, they have a big budget, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They're making a 2-hour-long commercial for it. December 24th, 2019.
That's right.
But that goes back to the fundamental business that we can possibly question on future businesses is when is big enough? And do we always think that it's a race to get from small to big? If you're willing to accept moderation on your growth, like say Citizen M, they don't want to be the next Marriott. They want to be Citizen M that's uniquely qualified for their locations, for their business. And they're not out to monetize in a scale like this. They're monetizing in a scale like this. And they're happy with that environment. Is that something of the future that, to beat the big beast, you don't become one? Well,
that's what, if I can say, that's what Stuart pointed out about what I talk about on the podcast a lot, and it's not my idea by any stretch.
Are you quoting me, quoting you? Is that what just happened?
I'm quoting you, quoting me, quoting the Halvarian and Carl Shapiro.
Him, wow.
right. We've got quoteception going on.
That's right. That's weird.
But it's you are. I can't remember the term that they use, and it's funny because I say it all the time, and now I've just completely drawn a blank. But you are the choice, right? You are the aggregator where everything is, or your niche. Now, niche doesn't have to be tiny. It just means you have to be narrow, right?
Right.
Citizen M could have been niche with.
Yeah.
You're specialized, right? And it appears to be a fundamental law of digital, right? Like it's a universal constant. You win by getting very, very big or being very specialized. Yeah. But if you try to split the difference, because you're putting yourself in a very, very bad position.
Well, and it's like Southwest Airlines, who I believe still carries more passengers than any carrier in the U.S. But they're set up. There's a certain way with you line up by number, and that's how they load the planes, things like that. Citizen M only has their one bed type, right? If you want to go, actually we were all set because we love Citizen M for the HSMI conference. I was like, oh yeah, my daughter will love it. And it's like, oh, they only have the one bed. We aren't going to pack all three of it. Now, it is an oversized king, but I don't know. Yeah, so. But again, they've decided that's their lane. They don't want, by design, a bunch of families. Now, you can buy a second room and things like that. But, as far as I know, I don't think they have connecting rooms. It's a very straightforward, pure product, which is great.
One of the articles you brought up, Robert, and that is the hotels being pushed in because of the Airbnb. To alternate ways of identifying their hotels.
Yes.
A link in there.
One last thing on the scale, though, when you're talking about data and artificial intelligence and things like that, the more data, if you can benefit from the network effect of the more data you have, the better your systems get at understanding things, then that gets tougher for, and Tim's right. You either start playing in that realm, or you're sticking to your knitting, and this is our product, and we're doing this really cool thing that people are going to love, and maybe it's a good, solid business, which is great. It's like the mom and pop Italian restaurant that's been there for 50 years. It's fantastic. They didn't franchise. They've got a line out the door. that's a great little business, right?
Right.
But it's
and,
not.
and can be
They
and
aren't
can be a good,
IPOing. Yeah.
and could be a great not so little business if you look at In-N-Out Burger, right? I mean,
Right.
if you
Yeah.
expand the definition of hospitality a little more broadly, you
That's
know, I know I've said this on the show many times. I work with primarily independent hotels. Most of my independent clients tend to operate a single hotel or, you know, just a few, right? The reality is that you absolutely can succeed at that. Again, just be very conscious of what your lane is and do it well, you know, and you can absolutely succeed there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of
So-
my clients like that too. But
Okay, so the different types of
the
hotels.
challenge is that
Hold on
when
one
you're in
second,
that
Robert. Yeah, go ahead,
when you're in that lane, you it's hard to get out of it. You know, we've seen, especially in the restaurant business, to use your analogy, there's a lot of times that mom and pop's been around successfully for like 30, 40 years, and then the new blood comes in. The kids say, oh, we can take this to the next level, and they buy a bigger establishment, or they try to change it up, and that's when they tend to struggle and go out of business. The Best Barbecue in Myrtle Beach did that. I think they'd been around for about 40 or 50 years, and they were in this little podunk shack, and it was always full, line out the door. And then they said, hey, we could make so much more money if we were on the main 17 highway. We'd have 5 times the seats. We could kill it. And they were closed within 6 months after moving because they just lost what made it special.
Back in my restaurant days, from operating and running restaurants for and building restaurants for people, you know, the single restaurant entity, and then they said, wow, this is great, it's so successful, we can do this, 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 and this. And they try to duplicate it, but what they're missing is, and there was many times where I built this beautiful restaurant, the decor was perfect, the location was perfect, the food was great, but the little podunk, been there since forever, dirt floor, peanut shelled ground, warm beer, you know, mediocre food, was packed all the time because of the quality of the relationships they had with their team. You can't duplicate the team every time you duplicate the restaurant. And the culture of your team is what really defines the relationships that make you popular. So even though you can have good food, and you're still getting the same good food, but if the server that was the one that you liked isn't there anymore, it changes the feel of the value of it. And that's the unfortunate part that happens out of that, is that, you know, that duplication creates an homogeny that isn't something that is as loyal, that you're much connected to. So
And you're right, Lauren. Lauren's Troffen Brew should have been a wild success.
You know, it was so good.
Yep.
I would eat it every day. That sounds perfect.
Food, always there, and the beer was kind of cold if you just gave it enough time. All right, so hey, I had some really great restaurants. There was one I had, the Mojo chicken sandwich. We did, and I didn't think much of it. It was just like, okay, so we marinate the chicken and we did the sandwich. We couldn't make those things fast enough. It was, I mean, line out the door stuff all the time. And it was like the just one of those things we just grabbed out of the air, saying, "Oh, let's make this sandwich, throw it on the menu." It turned out to be the signature of one of the restaurants I had. So it was
number
crazy.
one selling item at Chick-fil-A: fries.
Waffle fries. Can't beat
The
them.
waffle fries, people love them.
So would you get a blue room or a green room, Mr. Robert?
Yeah, Stuart mentioned the level of frustration with the article.
We're all marketers.
I got to admit, I must not have read this article. What the hell are we talking about?
Oh, how to differentiate yourself as a hotel in the world of Airbnbs, right? So one bright spot.
It's weird. I can't hear Stuart at all.
You can't hear Stuart at all?
I don't hear or see Stuart. It's like he doesn't exist.
Oh, I'm looking at him.
We can see
you
him.
hear me, right?
Oh, weird.
Yeah, I get you. I see everybody.
Stuart has that new blocking technology here on the platform.
That's funny.
Hold on, I'm gonna refresh my window again. Hold on, we'll try something else here.
All right, he's coming back. You guys can hear me
so
fine, right?
Anyway, so you think some of these articles, every once in a while I will throw into the list a little article which maybe I don't agree with completely.
I just, can you hear me now, Tim?
Yeah, I can see you. I can see you and hear you, Stuart. And my day is the better for it.
You know, a ton. That's funny. Lawyers get a bad rap for ruining everything, right? But I really think it's marketers that ruin everything. Like if you look at regulations that we complain about, it's because of us, because we abuse stuff, right? GDPR wouldn't exist if marketers weren't assholes. It's just
ad blockers wouldn't exist.
Right, exactly. Right.
Wouldn't exist. Yep.
Completely
we
agree.
ruin the world, period. And one of the ways we ruin the world, there are many, but one of the ways we ruin the world is we go to unsuspecting business owners and sell them a crock of crap for a bunch of money that for no apparent reason, right? And this color room thing is exactly that. It's nonsense. And when you dig into, well, why did you pick yellow and blue and green or whatever it is? It's like, oh, they're just commonly associated with these emotions. But it's just all marketing nonsense, which can be effective. And if the owner had come up with it on their own, I'd say, you know, worth a try. Good luck to you. Nice to have something unique. But you know, someone probably spent way too much money getting this half-assed idea off the ground.
Well, you know, it reminds me of how many owners that opened up a lofts regret they opened up in a loft because they have to keep changing the stickers on the wall every month. You know, but then again, it also reminds me of those roadside hotels. Do you want the Elvis room or do you want the love pit with the hot tub and the spinning bed? You know, this, you know, this uniqueness. It's fine if we could keep the inventory capable to being identified to the people that would be most interested in it, but we're not at that point. And so, you know, wanting to stay in a lodging somewhere, saying, "I'm sorry, sir, we only have blue rooms tonight." What? I mean, you know. Yeah.
And they said blue is the most popular because it's probably the least offensive to people. It's the most natural, neutral color out of them. I probably don't want to stay in a bright yellow room. Most people don't. Make all your rooms blue. You'd probably have more demand than this nonsense.
Right.
It's a matter of commodities. It's what you're going to the people of interest.
Or just make them unique and have, you know, you have 4 or 5 different color schemes.
Sure.
These are cool. They're well designed. And again, how do these things hold up in terms of, maintenance and repairs and things? Because boy, you see the green room, you go, yeah, that's trendy now. I wonder if that's going to look like in 5 years. If people go, is that cool?
We have our wonderful mixed-colored shag carpet room. If you're interested,
I think what annoys me the most is it's just so arbitrary. Like the fact that they're trying to justify it without any data to back it up. They're making it up as they go along, and that's frustrating. Yeah. I don't mind the uniqueness. Having different color rooms, great. Have at it. But don't try to pretend like there's some well thought out strategy behind
the neuroscience of
exactly.
That goes to what Accor Hotels was doing with their analysis thing, which just bugged the crap out of me at the conference because they really amplified this, selective process of travel through the technology they were using. It didn't even do that. I own one of those things. I can make lights go on and off with it because you do your theta waves and stuff. It isn't what they make it look like they did with it. And you're choosing your hotel travel plans by whether you like, beaches versus mountains versus, and it's like, no, I'm in the mood for something. Let me go find it. You don't be selective about it. It was one of those things that annoyed me at the conference. It was like, wow.
I share your annoyance with it, but I also see the value in it because they got so much hype and press because
of
that.
For that alone, I give them kudos. For
That's
that alone,
benefit,
that created the buzz. That was the thing. It brought attention to them out of the white noise of what is basically presentations from everybody. Absolutely. For that, I can't get anything off the table.
So since the niche thing has been sort of a theme of this show, we keep coming back to, one of the great things about digital, one of the great things about the internet, one of the great things about Google, one of the great things about Expedia, et cetera, right, is we live in a universe today where you should be what you are and let the people who want that find you, right? Yes. As long as it's a thing that people actually want, there's enough of them out there that they can find you and work with you and the like. So, that's the thing that I think where people go wrong is they chase the latest thing instead of trying to be what they are.
Yes.
Just be what you are. Be what you're good at. Do what you're good at.
But to that caveat, and this came out of your podcast, Stuart, was that everybody at the end of the day is still a room and a bed and an accommodation. It's the uniqueness of what you're providing around that as well. The level of service of guest interaction, the location, whatever it is, you have to be that too. Not just the bed and room. It's the It's the entity of who you are as a business, what you're offering as service, and your engagement with that. So,
well, my buddy Mike Moran has a great line. I use it all the time, but he's got this great line where he said people don't define differentiation correctly, right? We talk about differentiation. We always talk about it's the thing that makes you different, right? And he's like, no, that's not what differentiation is. Differentiation is the thing that's so different from what people do that the people who want that would be an idiot to not buy from you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Things
like
make you better. Yeah.
Right. Like, well, and just the thing of who's the customer you're trying to talk to? Who wants the thing that you are?
Right.
Be what they want so much.
Right.
So much that of course they would buy from you because they'd be stupid to buy from anybody else.
And if you do that, they're willing to pay a price premium for that. And that is what is really the litmus test for loyalty.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
not the point.
I've told this story many, many, many times, but I always loved the Jeff Bezos thing where he talked about when he started Amazon. He said people ask him what's going to change in the next 5 years, and he always said it's always more valuable to ask what won't change. And he said, the things that he knew weren't going to change was people wanted broad selection, they wanted low prices, they wanted fast delivery. He said he could never picture a universe in which people would come in and say, no, I want fewer options. I want them to cost more, and I want them to take a really long time to get to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like
faster, cheaper, better.
Well, that's just never going to be
their mission is still there. It has not changed.
And it has not changed.
Yeah.
Well, years.
Since we're quoting, one thing about Henry Ford's statement, if I asked my customers what they wanted before I made the car, they would say faster horses.
Right.
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 I want a faster horse. That sounds fun.
Yeah, I want a faster horse.
Who are you kidding? You want one of those? You want one of those grav bikes that they ride in Return of the Jedi?
I totally do.
So from a hotel's perspective, nobody ever says I want shitty service and an uncomfortable bed in a bad place and a high price.
And a cold
You know what?
shower.
Maybe there's a market for that. That's not a bad idea. Have you ever been to a Dick's Last Resort restaurant? You go there and they insult you.
Yeah. One of those things is like, let's get some shitty food and then bad service and overcharge you for it.
Right.
And abuse you while you're here.
I call that staying with my family.
There are some hotels in New York that do that. You go and look for TripAdvisor on there. 40% things like that.
But by the same token, it also gets lost in the guest service profile that if you rely too much on the branding, I've been to too many hotels that they rely on the fact that they have the latest in common area space and their breakfast breakouts and in their amenities in the room, that they forget there's a guest service component of warm welcome, engaging guests and talking to them and so forth, that they just say, we have the shiny new penny, and so you should be happy being here. And it's like, no, your team has to be trained, your team has to be engaged, your team has to be friendly.
Lauren, you get the kiosks, you reduce your labor costs.
Oh man, there's a dangerous trend in this industry right now that's blaming technology and looking for efficiencies and automation. And at the end of the day, there's not a problem in the hospitality industry that cannot be solved with the right kind of people and the right kind of training. Right.
Well, I'm going to get on a
as
soapbox.
long as housekeeping is being well trained.
I'm going to get on a soapbox. Hold on.
I'll let Stuart finish first before I go on my rant. Go ahead.
Well, for example, one of the things that people say, just as a small one, where they'll say, so-and-so, have you stayed with us before? And that's always used in every talk ever when they're talking about personalization, right? Oh, you should know whether your guests have stayed here before. There's easy solutions to that problem, that if people spent the time and trained the staff, that they could solve that, but they're blaming the technology when I don't think it's necessarily a technology problem. And that we are a hospitality industry, and most of our challenges could be resolved by a friendly smile and a nice welcoming.
One of my wife's pet peeves is when a waiter or a server will go over, and when they bring something and we say thank you, they say no problem.
Yeah,
you never say no problem. My
right.
pleasure. You're welcome.
Right.
No, it's not a problem. It's your job. It's not a problem. So you don't have to say no problem. It's like little peeves like that.
Simple
it's like
things. Yeah.
So the Bureau of Labor Statistics, right? And I'm going to build on what Stuart said, hardcore, because this makes me crazy, right? You should not. I want to say something very, 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 very carefully here, because the point I'm trying to make is really important. You should not take care of your guests. You should take care of your employees and teach them to take care of your guests.
Right. Yeah.
This industry, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, has a 74% turnover rate. 74%. You want to lower your cost of labor? Don't keep training them every 6 months. Don't start from scratch training people every 6 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
Keep the people who are actually doing a good job. Train them to do a better job. Take care of your team. Take care of the people whose job it is to take care of your guests so that they will do a good job of that. Lower your turnover rate, and you will actually be more profitable.
But wait, if you have a lower turnover, the high turnover rate lets you bring everybody in at minimum wage, so you don't have to give anybody their 6 month. You don't have to give them those increase. And what are you spending money on training for? If you cut that out, you can save all that money too. Yeah.
My favorite quote, since we've been doing quotes, my favorite quote, this is truly one of my favorites, was I was there the first time I heard somebody say it. I know it's been used in other places, but I literally was in a conversation at Charles Schwab in 1996, and somebody actually said, yeah, but if we spend all this money on training, some of these people are going to leave. And somebody else in the room said, yes, but what if we don't train them and they stay?
Exactly.
Here's an interesting thought when it comes to training. And Bonnie Buckheiser, I have to give her credit for this, and she calls it Xerox training. And so you buy a software, you buy a service, or you decide you're going to train. So you bring this product in and you train the staff that's there. If you're lucky, 40% of what you trained is retained.
Right.
Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, you leave, and through natural attrition, by not taking care of them, a new couple people are coming in. They're being trained by the people that were first generation trained. So you figure that they're being trained with only 40% of the retention. Let's say they keep 40% of that retention. Right. How far has that been scaled down? Eventually, by second or third generation Xerox training, you have such a blurry copy of that they don't even know how the software, the capacity of the software, the variations of the software. Even if you keep it updated as being a good vendor, nobody at that property has near the scale of understanding how to use that software, except for the small little incrementalities that they use repetitively, being trained by the trainer, by the trainer, by the trainer, by the trainer.
Right.
You know, so you have to use perpetual training.
Yeah. Right. But the bigger problem isn't that they don't know how to do their job, but no one knows why they're doing that in the first place.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, the monkey thing. Remember the monkey thing? With the thing where they put the monkeys in the one room and they put a bunch of bananas on the top of a pole, and anytime one of the monkeys went to get the pole, they hosed all the monkeys down with the hose. Okay, so then the monkeys stopped going over and trying the bananas because they knew that if they tried to go for the bananas, they get hosed. Well, then they took and put a new monkey in, and monkey saw the bananas. All the other monkeys beat the monkey up because they knew that the monkey go for the bananas. They're just going to get hosed.
That should be as funny as it is. That's awesome.
I know.
I worked with an organization like that before. Actually.
Right, yeah. All the monkeys. Yeah. So these monkeys have never been hosed, but they all know not to go for the bananas.
That's right.
We call that the Dread Pirate Roberts effect.
I would challenge the industry as a whole, right? Because there's a tendency right now, a lot of software companies are selling the value of their product as it's more efficient, you can cut down on staff costs, right? That's the value proposition and justification. How about instead of that, say, okay, now we can spend more time with our staff on training and motivation in spending time with our guests, because that ultimately is going to be a much better ROI than cutting a few $1,000s off your bottom line every
That's
year.
exactly right.
Well, and hiring the right people to begin with.
Yes, absolutely.
It is. You want to hire people who have an orientation toward hospitality, and then you can train them to do whatever they need to do. But boy, the other way around, going, yes, this person can type on a keyboard and check somebody in. If they aren't hospitable, you aren't going to get that trained.
I can teach you anything that I know, but I can't teach you motivation. You're going to want to know it to do it.
Yeah.
You can't just be taught that, that you're going to be excited about it. But to that end, and I'll say this from a perspective of what I currently do right now, I keep monitoring. There's clients that you roll through. We all have clients that we used to work with that we don't work with as much now or hardly at all, but I keep track of what they do. I see what they do. And a lot of times, ironically, I'll find and see, well, they've kind of ventured off the path here. they're kind of their site's breaking down, or their strategy seems to be getting soft, or whatever it is. And I'll reach back out to them and be like, hey, I just just popped in and looked at some of the stuff that I we used to do with you guys, and you're doing this now versus that. Is everything okay? I mean, and they're like, oh, well, we have somebody new, or we haven't been watching it. And a lot of times they just appreciate the fact that there's always a realignment that has to go on, that you do have to keep watching and make sure that the things are still running the way they're supposed to. And even though they put in somebody well-intended, maybe they're not doing it as well as they should or whatever. But a lot of times it keeps a great, I've always found they appreciate the relationship. I didn't charge them to do that. I just said, hey, you might want to take a peek at this and look at this. And next thing you know, they're happy for it. Maybe they find something else they want me to do for them, or maybe they all of a sudden somebody that they know says, you might want to talk to Lauren because he actually does care about what goes on or something. So it does help, and that's goes into the hotels, it goes into the restaurants, the same thing. Your guests and your staff should be that kind of people that are worried about the experience that the guests have at the hotel.
That's exactly right.
That's right.
Exactly right.
Yep. One thing that we didn't touch on, there was a article on, because we did touch on Google, but Google continuing its quest to be a one-stop shop for online travel, which has gotten zero press. But I noticed this on my on my Android, was when you go to Google Flights, which is a very, very powerful flight platform, which is pulling traffic from the OTAs and the metasearch folks. What happens now is you wind up with a variety of tabs. The second one being hotel.
Oh yeah.
And then they have another one for packages right there on Google Flights, and not really an announcement, very low key. This Quartzy article was really the only one that I found that even mentioned it. But it's getting interesting. They're bundling this stuff together, and the fellow, again, Google is putting some of their A-tier resources on travel. I mean, we've talked about Oliver Heckman before. The product manager for this, actually, I won't say his name because of the way I'm framing it. His name is only his first name at google.com. Right. That means you've been there a while. Right. I think he joined in 2000, 2002, something. He's now the product guy for travel. I mean, they are seriously putting their A-team folks on it. And
I will do a shout out. Cody, based in Dallas, who is a great
Fort
user.
Worth, but that's okay.
Okay, to your point.
They will tell you Fort Worth as opposed to Dallas.
Yeah, that's true. It's the megapolis of Dallas, Fort Worth. You're right.
That's right.
But Metroplex, we can say the Metroplex.
Yeah. They do a very good job with their blog. They pointed out this early on too, that they were seeing this beginning to show up a few months ago, that as a beta test role, that they were seeing hotels come into the flight results as well for options and availability as well. And they do. They have a really good progressive blog. I owe nothing to them in that sense. I like following their blog because they keep pretty much on the front edge of most stuff when it comes to that. So
I'm trying to pull this up right now, and I'm failing miserably, and I don't know that I can share it when I do pull it up. But I gave a talk down at HSMAI a couple weeks ago, one of the chapter meetings in DC, and one of the things I showed is Google Assistant now resides natively within Google Maps. Right. And you can actually have, I have a demo of it, of finding a hotel on Google Maps through Google Assistant. And here's the crazy part. On the day I tested it and did the screen recording for it, and I've tried it other times, other things have happened at different points, but the day I tested it, it brought back one hotel.
Yeah. You showed me that at the conference.
So I'm driving in my car. Yeah, I did. I showed you at the conference. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, this is real. This is
what was
actually
your query? What was your query that gave? What was
hotels in whatever the hell town I was going to in Virginia, which I can't remember the name of the town off the top of my head. But Arlington, right? And it brought back one hotel, and I just found it.
Was it a good was it the best option? I mean, was it a compelling price at a popular, well-located property? Was it the best answer?
It was an okay answer. There's a lot of things I don't know about what happened here. I have my theories. It was a Red Lion. The day that I did this, I specifically had somebody in the car to manage the recording part, but I wanted to do it live. Like, I didn't want it to be bogus, so I was actually driving. So I I couldn't tell a lot of what was going on because all I got later was what did it actually do, right?
Right.
Because I was trying to make this as authentic an experience as possible. So so there's a lot of things I have questions about that I haven't had quite the amount of time I wish I had to follow up on and dig into. Here's what I think is true. And I'm making a broad guess here because I really don't know. I don't think I've ever stayed in a Red Lion property in my life. Oddly enough, I just think that's been the way it's worked out. I know that Red Lion has a very, very good paid search program and does really smart things with paid search. And I think because I had literally installed the Google Assistant enabled form of maps that day, it had not yet synced up data or things along those lines. So it was going with what was Google's default choice as opposed to other past things it knows from me, right? So, it's a good paid partner. Thus, we're going to give them a good ranking on this at the moment. And they've done local search very well. I mean, there's a lot of pieces they've done right. Yeah. As opposed to saying, here's a better personalized answer for this guest who we know something about, right? I suspect the thing that they didn't do is more likely to be the thing they will do going forward, right? Is we know stuff about you, we know where you've stayed, we know where you've booked, we know where you've searched. That's going to drive what comes back as part of the results pretty regularly. I strongly suspect.
And even as we mentioned, a few shows ago with the New York Times article on capturing all the data of where people are going and where they're staying anonymously, perhaps not knowing exactly, having your name or whatever identifiers, all of a sudden they can figure out a lot of very, very interesting, these are people who happen to be at this spot, which is this hotel let's go back and look through all those signals that we have on, like Tim, wear Louboutin heels, or very fashion forward, whatever the case.
They make my calves look fabulous, if I can say.
They do. They certainly do, Tim. We all agree on
get out of your mind.
But they figure out all that stuff, and and when you really look at it empirically, you can argue, there is no best choice for a traveler. I would argue you get AI involved. Yeah, there's a winner. Yeah. There's one that you look at all the factors and you go, weighting everything you can possibly consider, this is your best option on a price, value, what you like, where you need to do, what you're doing. This is a winner.
Here's an odd reversal of thought. It used to be, and we were led by the nose by this, that being homogenous about our data, making sure that we had our room descriptions, our rates, our availabilities, our standardization of amenities, and so forth, and pushing that data out, the whole schema mentality of, all this is our baseline information, is almost the antithesis of the reversal to one of Tim's earlier points of unique niche capability, since that seems to be our theme of the show today, is you can lose yourself into the white noise of similarity, or you can identify yourself in the singularity of unique. And when AI is going to get more and more involved with this, as more and more intuitive understanding of what our individual preferences are, those unique qualifiers, those niche qualifiers, are the defining singularity answers compared to the homogeny of room and rate in the generalized location. So it's almost going to be like you're going in reverse of what we have been always doing in our strategies of marketing, which is making sure that all of our relevant information is in market so that we can be identified as a part of an entity of inventory. And instead now it's like, no, we have to identify our individuality a little bit. So
you got to do both. Yeah, you have to have that.
You have to have both.
You have to be there, but you also have to have that uniqueness. That's
what makes you better, right? Is really
why would they be they would have to be an idiot to not buy from you.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. And we'll get past some of the base qualifiers early on. I mean, obviously, price and proximity are going to be probably the first, if not primary, qualifiers to selective process. But then things of amenities like I like king beds versus the choice of stuck with double beds. I like high floors versus low floors or whatever. Whatever those things may be.
Okay. Well, here I'll give you a scenario. We're working through this right now. My daughter's studying abroad in Florence, right? She's going to go see Drake.
Not proud or anything of that, is he?
Drake in Amsterdam. Go see Drake in Amsterdam, right? with some friends, right? So that's great. Well, she has some choices. She's going in. It's like a Thursday night concert. She's going in Wednesday, coming back Friday because she's got to go to Rome on Saturday or something. But yeah, she's hitting a lot of places.
Which coffee shop she's going to hit along the route.
Exactly. Well, no, but where does she stay? Right. So her choices is she's getting really kind of. There are a lot of options. It's a midweek stay. It's very expensive that week in Amsterdam, right? So we found this one property which is close to Anne Frank House because she wants to go do that in the museum, things like that. But it's going to be for 2 people for 2 nights, probably $450, which is pricey. Yeah. Or she can stay in a hostel for women only, which is out 20 minutes out of downtown Amsterdam, but near the venue for the concert. But she's, you're going to be in a dorm with 8 or 10 other women, right? And it's half the price. So which is the best option is a really interesting question because she doesn't want to spend the money. She certainly recognizes the value of one, but one has proximity, but a much, much different experience. That's a really complicated question. I don't know.
I think she picks the curtain by Caro Merrill and asks Daddy for more money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, Tim, isn't that how you've raised your daughters? You provide them with a large hamper of cash near the door, and they take what they need, right?
That's right. That's absolutely. Yeah. In fact, we have a private jet. My daughter, who lives in Arizona, we have a private jet that flies out a weekly supply of cash every week.
Fresh, filled. But she doesn't like those wrinkled, used ones.
Exactly. It sure feels that way anyway. No, I'm kidding. That's a joke. Actually, my kids are very frugal. I'm very proud of them in terms of how they manage their money.
Well, you got to figure that this is Robert's daughter, so she's already done 10 reservations booked. She's going to be going.
No. No, that gene didn't pass down to the kids. The pragmatism of my wife going, just make it happen and make sure it's right and good is more there. Yeah.
More okay.
Yeah. So,
well, we're at a point. Do you want to do the rut row?
We can certainly do
the rut row if we do it quick. It's 1:00 Eastern, noon Central. I can hang for a little bit.
Tim's lunchtime. If he doesn't eat now, he won't eat for the rest of the day.
And Tim gets hangry. We do not want a hangry Tim.
That's all right. Exactly.
Wait, I thought this was him before the Snickers. This is him when he's not hangry.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Wow. You ain't seen nothing yet, brother. Believe me. You can take the boy out of Jersey, but
All right. So the railroad.
Amazon bought a router company.
Where's Ed?
So
I want Ed's input on this one. I want to hear him rant about privacy.
Yeah. Well, Ed and I would have a fight because I'm actually an Eero customer and I don't care. I think it's fine.
Yeah, nice.
I think it's fine. Eero has a terrific privacy policy. They have stated that they are not going to veer from that privacy policy. Of course, Amazon's going to get additional data from this, and of course, they're going to use that data to try and recommend products. And of course, I would rather, if they're going to recommend me products, that they're going to recommend products I might actually give a crap about buying. So as long as they're not monitoring the individual packets that are going across and things along those lines, and they're sufficiently anonymizing and the like, I trust Amazon with this data far more from a reputational risk perspective than I do Facebook, than I do a lot of other companies. Then I trust Target, frankly, because Target that can't seem to find, and as much as it pains me to admit this, but look at the track record, more than I trust most hotel companies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Amazon actually seems to understand information security and the value of actually protecting the privacy of people's data, the security of people's data, a lot more than a lot of other large companies. And so I'm completely.
Well,
do I have any concerns? Do I have any things that I want to pay attention to? Do I want to be an informed consumer? Yes. Am I specifically worried that this is going to, be the end of times? Please. If Facebook bought Eero, the thing would be on fire in my front yard right now.
Well, and that's interesting because of when you start looking at the whole advertising, I mean, traditionally Amazon has been very geared toward their own internal benefit, right? On their network, on their platform, it's very
growth.
Their ad platform is
but
huge.
their ad platform will be, I think, by the end of this year, number 3. It's if it's not there already, right? So so that'll be interesting of how they develop that, how much they reveal, things like that. And
it's a caveat. It's a caveat of saying that the reason why I feel more, to your point, Tim, that more secure that they have it is because they see the benefit of it retaining it themselves, not to be sharing and distributing it and dispersing it.
Right.
They see the value in their own internalization. I will add one little just shade to this, and that is with the deregulation as it exists, the ability to throttle, regulate, or control accessibility, speeds, and functionalities of competitors does come into this conversation to a degree, because if they
go ahead.
They can control the methodology of connectivity compared to those that they're competing against.
So you're saying slow down Netflix and speed up Amazon Prime as an example?
There you go.
Yeah, and here's the thing. This is why I think we need a true net neutrality regulation in this country.
Yes.
I feel very strongly about that. I feel very strongly about that.
Yes.
And B, and especially because I have a very specific reason for asking, which is not just me. About 40% of the country, right? About 40% of the U.S. has the option of one internet service provider.
Mm-hmm.
I'm entirely fine with letting the market decide once there is a truly competitive market.
Yes.
Right.
Completely fine with that. Today, we do not have a truly competitive market. And then the second thing, and since I was
we will
crashing
in
Facebook,
about 12 months, we'll have a competitive market with 5G. That should.
I don't think we're gonna have 5G at scale in 12 months. I think we're 5 years from 5G at scale.
Yeah. Really think it's that far?
Yeah.
I mean, it's coming rapidly.
They said, I think Verizon's tests in Sacramento, they only have 10% of the market covered, and they are now waiting for basically all the tech, the handsets and everything else, the routers, everything else to support it. And they said they're done, right? That's it. They aren't doing any more development until the end of the year. So
I think we're 3 to 5 years before we see that at scale. I agree with you, Stuart, that I think that's going to be a huge event, but I think it's a few years away. Since I was just trashing Facebook, I just had my second point about this. No, it's real quick. My second point about this is, again, you give me the choice between Amazon and Comcast. I'm going to trust Amazon.
Amazon for sure.
Yep.
I think two fundamental major decisions in our lifetime, or at least in this past decade, are having profound effects. One is the Supreme Court's decision to allow corporate entities to exist that created super PACs and the ability to influence politics in that way.
Well,
the other one is
basically money is
speech. Money
speech. And the same too with net neutrality, the cancellation of that, and allowing now the people that regulate or can regulate the method of our communication. As you pointed out with Google and being the big monster that crushes the 800-pound gorillas, when you're controlling the source of it, then you control everything downstream from it. And the connectivity of it, of being able to control connectivity is at a wellspring. And same too, like with Google and their information in that sense. So, I think those are.
But I do think, I don't mean to defend them, because I don't think Amazon will do the right thing because they'll do the right thing. I'll do the right thing because if people understand that I buy this router, my Netflix service goes to crap, they're not going to buy the router. So I think they will do the right thing because it's in their best commercial interest to do the right thing.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's why they made this purchase, right? It's in their best commercial interest. They're going to give visibility even without changing the privacy policy, because they're not looking at individual websites, but they are looking at things like devices, and they're probably able to see that you're using certain channels like Netflix, for example. So it's a good way for them to buy a lot of consumer behavior data and incorporate that into their strategy movement.
And that router generates
service to provide.
Yeah. The differentiator for those routers, though, are they produce a massive amount of data. Right, in terms of that they capture and produce. It isn't just sitting there going, we got these packets, we're really good at doing that. They're going, oh no, what are they doing? Which ironically within the hospitality and travel industry, to try to tail things back to that, way back in 1995, I believe, when Fisco. This was, I'm not sure if they were
Fisco.
Fisco or
in
Pegasus.
1995. They were still Fisco because my wife worked for
I thought you were saying Cisco with a lisp.
in
You're right.
1995.
You're absolutely
Pegasus didn't exist yet. It was Pegasus.
That's
before my time.
It was Anasazi rather.
It was Anasazi because before that she worked with Travel Resources. It was acquired by
and we got married in February of 1994, and then moved to Phoenix for her to work for Anasazi, where Fisco was housed. Fisco's switch was housed in the Anasazi data center on Dreaming Drive in Phoenix, Arizona.
Anyway, okay, we'll go way down that rabbit hole, which the absolute best thing that they used to do on they used to take tours of people through that, and you could see all the flashing lights,
all the blinking lights,
all the blinking lights. It looked amazing until somebody tripped over a cord and put that on the switch,
which took down. By the way, just for Stuart, you said this before your time. Just so you're aware, this was the switch. This was the thing that connected everybody in the industry to the
14
GDSs.
Major hotel groups,
And somebody tripped over the cord.
All the lights stopped.
Literally.
Yeah, that stopped the data center tours. But hang on, back then, so the investor in Anasazi was Trident Capital.
Yeah.
And they were also the investor in Fisco, which became Pegasus and everything like that. And
then Anasazi bought Pegasus and took the Pegasus name.
You're absolutely correct, yes. But in that meeting, one of the stipulations by Rock Schnabel, who was a former Secretary of Commerce or something like that, who was the main managing partner of Trident, to John Davis and Bill Nicholson in the room, was they were going to invest the money under one caveat, which was they turned that into a data business.
Yeah.
That they took that, like the router, all that information passing back and forth, instead of just doing that, which was a kind of crappy business, that if you could glean off this data and it could be anonymized and everything like that, and then figure out the wealth of searches and bookings and and all of this stuff, that's what they were invested in, and then Pegasus never did that business.
Right. They never figured out how to get there.
They never. They promised they would as a contingency of that, and then did not put forward the resources or anything to make that happen whatsoever.
10 years after that, I was at a Google dance at Google in Palo Alto, and they used to back then have a screen in their lobby that was showing all the current searches that were going through Google. And it was amazing because obviously it was going way too fast, but most of it was porn anyway. So it was, okay, porn this, porn that, porn this. But just to think, you think about the progression of this. I mean, my God, we're sitting now looking back and nostalgically thinking, wow, look back in the days with this and the speed and efficiency. We're now talking about AI, and to your point about the data that's being pulled from these switches, it's there they may not know what to do with it yet, or they have an idea what they want to do with it, but you start pumping that into an AI quantum computer capable environment where it can start doing, progressive understanding and awareness of what all that data is talking about.
What it means.
Yes.
Right.
And then to go back to Stuart's point, it may not be that far away that all of a sudden you're going to start realizing the fact that what you just did in the car, Tim, with looking for a hotel is as comfortable as an option to us as it was when we used to have multiple options as a result. You're just going to be like, that's fine. That sounds great. That sounds like a great hotel. Book it, get it done, whatever. And we're going to lose that multiplicity of results.
That decision, the management decision not to do that, hampered the industry. That was a huge opportunity for the industry to leap forward, similar to the one with when I was at Sabre and we developed Hotelligence, because we had half of the automated hotel transactions going through that platform. It was supposed to be internal. It was an easy $4 million a year in revenue. That was given here. Have our intellectual property at that time to Graycon, because TravelClick did not exist, was given on a 50-50 revenue share, completely squandering the value of that data, which could have helped outrageously. It could have helped the supply side, could have helped the demand side, everything, and just given away through a lack of understanding. Just another one of these oops Another Rutrow moment, right?
So I want to bring this somewhat full circle. It's not full circle. It's more like a six with a really big loop in it. Yeah. But I'm going to tell you why I'm bearish on Google real quick, and I'm going to tell you why I'm bullish on Google. To go back to why I think Google's going to win, right? Why I wrote that article, right? Mm-hmm. Why I'm bearish on Google is that I think they get distracted. There was a guy who quit about a year ago, maybe it was last summer, I don't remember, who wrote this memo and basically talked about they spend too much time worrying about their competition. Some fairly senior product manager, I don't remember his name, you can just search for it.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
But he basically bitched about the fact that, Google has lost their way, they've lost their focus, they're too worried about the stock market, they're too worried about their competitors, they're not focused on what the customer wants. And the reason that makes me somewhat bearish on them is because I remember that exact thing happening about 15 years ago, 12 years ago, I think, when a senior product manager wrote a memo saying exactly the same thing about Yahoo. And it turned out he was right in the long term, but it took, 10 years of inertia before it finally ground to a halt, right? But his point was true. It's just Yahoo was big enough and successful enough that it didn't fail the next day. It took them a while before they really collapsed. And so if this guy's correct, that's the thing that's going to kill Google, right? It's not that they're not smart. It's not that they're not capable. It's that they will focus poorly. The reason I'm bullish on them goes back to that screen that you just mentioned, Lauren. In the early days of Google, very, very early, this is like 2001, 2002, was the first time they'd ever put these screens in their offices in Palo Alto, Mountain View rather. And there were a group of engineers who were working there. This is a really heavy story. I'm totally serious about this. They didn't realize what Google was at the time. They just thought they were building this search engine thing, right? And there were a group of engineers working late in the office about 4 or 5 days before Christmas. And the way the screen worked was, terms that were hot would get bigger, right?
Yeah.
And what kept coming up on the screen again and again and again and bigger and bigger and bigger was suicide hotline.
Wow.
And that's when they realized, holy crap, we're not building a search engine. We're not building some piece of technology. We're changing people's lives. Like we're affecting and if Google can keep that focus, if they can remember that focus, and if they keep using that and using this data and all this other kind of stuff, that's why they're going to win. That's the reason they're going to win. And it's not a thing that Amazon can do, and it's not a thing that Apple can do, and it's not a thing that Expedia can do. That's a thing that today, if they keep that focus, only Google can do.
But to your point, that is Amazon's primary focus is
for sure.
That's in their core DNA is we don't care about the competition, we care about the consumer. And every decision
you hit a defining difference on one thing. Just I don't want to take too long. Is that Google? There is no single head to this. There is multiplicity of people. Okay, you look at Apple and the difference of Apple with jobs, without jobs. Okay, you look at Amazon. Amazon's driven by still the singularity of thought of one person, and just like Virgin, just like Tesla. So when you have somebody that is pulling the one chain that pulls all the others, you have this purpose. When you lose that one purpose, and it now is up to a committee and decisions. Not that they all don't have to answer to their own.
Sure.
But that vision part of it. You talk about democracy and the universal ability for the group of people to go in a direction. There is a value proposition to singularity of thought of one person's vision, one person's purpose. Google had that a lot with the two gentlemen that started it early on, but now it's just diffused. You said the distraction. Like the last time I went through Google was so funny. Because over the years, I've been able to visit there several times. And to your point, Tim, the Google that I first saw and first met the engineers at Google Dance and so forth in the heady early 2000s. I go back now and we're taking a tour and here's the game room, here's the and it's like, oh, do you guys get to play with? Oh no, we don't play with the games because their culture's changed. To go play video games means you're failing. that you have too much time on your hands. Yeah, it's free food, but they now look at it as a negative that between free food and free laundry and everything means that you're going to work later and longer, not because they're doing it as a benefit to you. The culture changed. Before it used to be cool that you worked at a place that they fed you and they did your laundry. Now it's like, no, we figured that out, that they did that so that we just work until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And if you didn't, you were following behind the people that did. And hell, you're not going to go play on the pool table because that means somebody else is busting up and working better than you, and you're going to get promoted. The culture's changed to it a little bit.
Well, and I feel bad for pointing this out, but that's why I hedged, right? That's why I said the reason I'm bearish and the reason I'm bullish. If you'd asked me this 5 years ago, I would have said the reason I'm bullish, and there wouldn't have been a bearish.
Yeah, they can fall either side of the knife. Either side of the knife.
But if they fail, it's not because somebody beat them. It's because they stepped on their own shoelaces. Right.
Yeah.
It's because they lost sight of what they were supposed to do.
I can see the way you describe it. I can see that because as you're saying that, I'm like, yep, I couldn't put my finger on it.
And to Stuart's point, and Stuart, I could not agree with you more. Flat out couldn't. And B, I read a stat the other day, and I think I have this right. I believe they have 10,000 engineers at Amazon working on Alexa. Not on anything else. 10,000. That's if any of them are any good, that's a you know what I mean? That's a pretty good place.
Even if 1% of them.
That's what they're, if you get 10, you get 10% or 1%, half a percent.
I'm not taking this way to say the Amazon people. What's the old adage? If you give an infinite amount of time to a room full of monkeys, they will build
exactly. Exactly.
You end up with the show, I think. Is the
they won't be, but they will not be.
Should be called an infinite number of monkeys.
Infinite amount of time, you will build a nuclear bomb, right? All right, with that, Mr. Tim, I do not want to take away from your lunchtime because you're going to get hangry in less than 10 minutes, man. And with that, I'd say, Mr. Tim, if people want to know more about you and your amazing podcast and also articles and blog, where is it that they can find you, sir?
They can find everything they want at timpeter.com. If you want the link's in the footer, but the podcast is timpeter.com/podcast.
And Mr. Roberts, sir, if they want to know everything about Rock Cheetah and your amazing ability to recall history and it's in first-person tense all the way back to
I was there.
Robert Van Winkle.
You were the front desk agent in Bethlehem when you oversold, right?
That's right.
The only guy here who's ever walked the Lord.
Exactly. Well, if Joseph, he had that carpentry business, if he had prepaid, he didn't run into that problem, right? We had an advanced deposit policy, and hey, he didn't get it. What can you do? So you can go rockcheetah.com and at Robert K. Cole.
Oh man, fuel travel. You can find us at fueltravel.com, fuel travel on Twitter, or fueltravel.com/podcast is the podcast. But
if you haven't noticed, I've been coming up on your podcast. And by the way, thank you. I didn't realize I didn't finish the last of the influence when you gave a shout out to me about the influencer software. Thank you. I just picked that up the other day. I was like, oh. Thank you. Appreciate that.
And Lauren, where can they find?
Oh, yes. And for everything that we did with this show at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live, you'll get the show notes, the links, and everything else, and all links to all previous 183 other episodes of this show that we're going in. We're coming up to our anniversary for our 4th, going into 5th year now.
Yeah.
And what we'll now start previewing the top item for next week's show, which will be old school revenue management in biblical times.
Oh, by the way, next week we are going to talk about drones.
About the guy what?
That drone guy.
He's coming on the show next week.
Yeah, he's going to be on the show next week. We're going to bring him in, and I guess we're going to fly a drone from the show. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But he's going to talk about the drones and stuff. So it'll be like drone wars, nothing but drone wars. But
it's a different kind of droning than you're used to on this show.
Exactly.
Well, I just discovered how the Lord got his name. Joseph came in, he saw the rate Robert had set and went, Jesus Christ.
High demand. Hey, high demand. Period. You know,
The census data things are going on.
Christmas Eve in Bethlehem. That is right.
All right. On that note.
All right. Well, with that, everyone, thank you so very much for your time. For those who watch the show and who listen in the future, thank you for putting up with our really strange sense of humor.
You're making me cry.
And now that we've gone totally holy sacrilegious, Tim avoids the politics, but let's just hit the religion, shall we?
All right. Show number 185 next week, 11:30 Eastern, 10:30 Central. Until then, gentlemen, thank you so very much. And for everyone else, have a great and wonderful day. Bye-bye now.
Bye now.
Bye.